allow us to enable me to share my screen. I would like to share my screen at 2 points in time. Can the technical moderator, can you enable? I try to do that, I'm unable to. And also, if you could enable Usman Badian to share his screen as well. He has a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah. And welcome to Maximo Torero, who also joined us. You're right, I need to see if I can share my screen.
Usman, how are you? Nice to see you. Hi, all.
Hello,
nice to see you, thank
Maximo.
you.
Hi, madam.
Hello, madam.
The technical moderator, can you hear us? Can you help us with enabling sharing of screens?
For 2 people, Seti Makombe and Usman Badian.
And also Julie Collins, just
And Julie
in
Collins,
case.
great.
Welcome, Godfrey, Baiba.
Okay,
Yes, thank you so much, Sarah. Happy to be here.
Karibu Mize. Good to have you
Asante
with us.
sana.
Okay, great. So you're able to share your screen, Tsitsi?
But not yet. I'm just trying to find my files now.
It looks to me that we are live, but I don't think we've had more people join yet.
Okay. I'm just looking for my files. Technical moderator, can you assist me? Sorry, I have some files saved on my desktop, but let's just see.
Oh, okay. It looks like we're seeing your desktop now.
I apologize, you're seeing my messy desktop. All right, I'm just gonna try with this file. I've opened a PowerPoint. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So it is working.
Yep, it is.
Yep, we see it. Tsitsi.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
So go to presentation mode if you want. Or you want to
Okay.
check what it does. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I can get to it. But yeah, now that I know how to
Okay.
get to it. Yeah. Thank you.
Let me check mine as well. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Not. I don't see it yet.
Yes.
Okay.
I see it on my side.
Okay.
see it.
Okay. Then let me stop sharing.
And it's now one. It's now 1.
Okay.
So why don't we move to Dr. Sarah Bagobunu to start us off? Thank you, Sarah.
Yes, and I'll
Thank
switch
you
off.
very much. So I would just like to say good morning, good afternoon to all participants. My name's Sarah Bagobunu. I'm the Regional Director for Eastern Southern Africa for the International Fund for Agricultural Development. And I just want to recognize and thank the organizers of this very important session, the launch of the 2021 Africa Agriculture Trade Monitor, a very exciting report, both IFPRI for this effort and academia for the joint effort. Today we have an exciting series of panelists for you, and we hope that this report will be able to present the research findings, the policy recommendations for the trade outlooks, looking at trends, progress, for regional and global markets from an African agriculture trade perspective. We want to also see the role the trade is playing in building back better during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. And we will hear panelists discuss policy measures for boosting inter-African agricultural trade and advancing the African Free Trade Continental Area implementation process. So without much ado, I would really like to kick off the exciting discussion with a few opening and welcoming remarks. And the first speaker is Dr. Godfrey Baiba, Director of Agriculture and Rural Development for the African Union Commission. Dr. Godfrey, please, the floor is open to you. 3 minutes. To you, Godfrey.
Yes, thank you so much, Sarah. Can you hear me?
We can hear you well, Godfrey.
Okay, all right. I thought you weren't hearing me. Yes, thank you so much, Sarah, and good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Usman Badian, the Executive Chair of Academia 2063, all protocol observed. I'm happy to be here. And on behalf of Her Excellency Ambassador Joseph Sako, the Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy and Sustainable Environment of the AU Commission, I'm happy to give the opening remarks. I welcome you all to the launch of the 2021 Africa Agriculture Trade Monitor report. And I want to congratulate Academia 2063 and IFPRI on their collaboration in producing this important and timely publication. I also want to thank AGRF 2021 Summit organizers for hosting the launch session. This year's Africa Agriculture Trade Monitor comes at a unique time during the first year of trading under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and during the second year of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has severely impacted economic activity, including trade across our continent. Both of these events underscore the need for more and better trade data to inform the AfCFTA implementation as well as responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. The objective of the Africa Agriculture Trade Monitor is to provide high quality and consistent data and analysis to strengthen evidence-based policymaking in agricultural trade. This week, the AU Commission, the AU Development Agency, NEPAD, regional economic communities, and our technical partners are gathered in Nairobi to write the third CAADP Biannual Review Report, which will present the progress that countries, regions, and the continent as a whole are making towards the 2025 CAADP Malabo Declarations, Goals, and Targets. The Africa Agriculture Trade Monitor is a complementary source of evidence to inform strategies to advance progress toward the Malabo targets. The Malabo target of tripling in Africa trade in agricultural products and services by 2025. The 2021 Africa Agriculture Trade Monitor addresses challenges affecting African agriculture trade, including relatively low agricultural productivity and investment, high trading costs, and non-tariff barriers inside and outside of the continent that impede the flow of trade. I'm glad that the report also highlights areas of opportunity. It confirms findings of the previous edition of the Africa Agriculture Trade Monitor on the growing share of processed foods in intra-Africa agriculture trade, demonstrating that food systems actors are adding value to products traded with their neighbors. Growing intra-Africa trade in higher value added agricultural products is an encouraging sign which deserves attention during our discussions at the United Nations Food Systems Summit coming up later this month in New York around accelerating food systems transformation. In conclusion, the African Union Commission welcomes this 2021 Africa Agriculture Trade Monitor report as a key source of knowledge and evidence on agricultural trends and outlook. I wish you all fruitful deliberations and thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Baiba, there talking about trade and its important role in agricultural transformation. I thank you for those opening remarks and the important contribution that the Africa Agriculture Trade Monitor plays. I would now like to invite Dr. James Okemi, Acting Division Chief, Bureau for Resilience and Food Security for the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, to deliver his opening remarks.
Thank you very much. James. Can you hear?
Yes, very well, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mbagobunu, Dr. Bahigwa, Dr. Badian, all protocols observed. It is indeed an honor and a pleasure to be here to provide some opening remarks for the AATM. As we all know, the world is in the midst of deliberating how best to transform food systems. and the role that agricultural trade plays in facilitating these transformations cannot be understated. Agricultural trade is critically important. Intra-African agricultural trade can help to transform food systems by generating jobs for women and youth in agricultural value chains, raising incomes, and improving food security and nutrition. In the past, the AATM has shown the enormous potential of African agricultural trade and the increase over time, which has been very significant. African exporters have gained competitiveness in intra-regional markets. They've diversified their exports and their trading markets and their trading partners over the last decade. Yet persistent challenges and exogenous shocks continue to undercut the potential. Dr. Bahigwa has listed some of the areas where we need to improve. USAID welcomes and supports the efforts of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement to significantly boost intra-African trade by addressing these challenges head-on. The launch of the 2021 AATM is extremely timely, as it examines both these longer challenges and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. It also examines the unprecedented opportunity presented by the Free Trade Agreement. The US government and USAID in particular remains committed to promoting African trade through various programs and initiatives, such as supporting the Free Trade Agreement through trade capacity building and marshaling US private sector investment in Africa. The Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, which provides eligible African countries with preferential access to US markets. USAID sub-regional trade and investment programs in East, Southern, and West Africa. Investments in policy research to better understand challenges facing African agricultural trade and improved policy options. USAID's support for the AATM is a prime example. The AATM is a unique and vital resource that provides all of us who are committed to enhancing trade with the latest trends and in-depth analysis we need to inform and guide our efforts and programs. Congratulations to Academia 2063, to IFPRI, and to everyone who put such hard work into such a great report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Keme, for those words and the commitment that USAID continues to demonstrate in promoting trade across Africa. I want to now quickly pass on to Dr. Osman Bidan to give us the Executive Chairperson of Academia 2063 to deliver a keynote presentation for the 2021 Africa Agriculture Trade Monitor, and we look forward to his keynotes. Dr. Osman, please. We don't hear you, but we do see the presentation. Our technical team, is there?
No,
okay.
No, I'm good. I had muted myself. You can hear me now? So I was saying—
Yes, very well.
Thank you very much. I would start by thanking Jo Suinan for the quality of partnership with IFPRI, which allowed us to continue to produce a high quality report in the AATM. I also would like to thank Vanessa for the opportunity to work with AGRF and to launch this report every year with within the AGRF event. So to all our panelists and everybody who's here, thank you and welcome. I will be presenting highlights from the this year's monitor, and I'll go right into it. A few questions that we always all ask ourselves when we think about African trade. What is Africa's position in global markets? What is the competitiveness of African exports? What is happening to diversification of traded goods and products? What is the degree of value addition in traded goods? Are African countries trading more with one another? Has COVID affected trade? All those different questions that we have, I will touch a little bit on those. Of course, the report is much richer than that, and I cannot cover all. Especially, there is a whole chapter dealing with livestock sector, and another one dealing with the Arab Maghreb Union. So you can find those in the report. So one thing that has stayed true in this one as well is the rather flat trend in Africa's share in global markets. Of course, that means that we're growing at perhaps similar pace as global trade, but that's not going to get us to the higher shares that we want. So we are not in a position yet to increase those shares as long as we don't grow much faster than the rest of the world. Trade is still dominated by the large commodities, cocoa, coffee, tobacco, and oilseed. So this will have certainly to be boosted in order for us to achieve some of the goals of the Agenda 2063. So what is happening, my colleagues refer to that, is that trade in African countries are getting more competitive in global markets. We have three sets of products here: processed, semi-processed, and processed. If you see in the report, the trend in competitiveness is among processed goods. Some are going more competitive, and more commodities are getting more competitive in the market. Some are less, but there's certainly an uptrend there. It is more ambiguous in the case of semi-processed product, where the competitiveness is going up and more products are becoming more competitive. So here, more are becoming more competitive, some are becoming less, here more definitely. And here what's happening is that this unprocessed goods, that you have few that are becoming more less competitive, which is actually the trend we want like to go to get more competitiveness in the other two sectors. We looked at also whether African countries are diversifying into higher value products, and that's what we all wanted. The concept we apply here basically is looking at 4 different possibilities. Are we exporting goods that are less ubiquitous, which are more selective, much more sophisticated, and are being diversified in those goods? So we want to be in a place where we have diversified countries exporting produce that are high value and that are a little bit more sophisticated. So how do we go from few low value goods to many high value goods, so to say? So we have looked at African exporters, all the different countries, and to see where we are today in this quadrant. Are we doing few high value goods, or few low value goods, or many low value goods, or many high value goods, which is really where we would like to be. So we looked at African countries, those are the black dots. We compared 2 periods, 2003 to 5 and 2017 to 19. And you see here that most African countries were in this quadrant with lower diversification, lower sophistication, so meaning few low value goods. As we move to 2017 and 19, most countries are getting here from that to still few goods, but a higher sophistication of these goods. So we want to move into this direction. And as of now, only South Africa and Egypt are there. In the same place we have the Germans and the China. We see, however, that 65% of African countries were here. Now 85% of them are here down. So we're getting a little bit better, more sophisticated, but there's a lot that we need to do. Here we have the trend in intra-African trade, went up rapidly up to 2013 and has gone down and now stabilizing. So there's still a lot to be done to triple trade. And you will see the discussion in the documents talking about them. So we declined from the peak, stable last 5 years. But what we just heard here, 50% of intra-trade are processed goods and another 25% are semi-processed goods. A good trend we would like to see. Here we're looking at now the quality of intra-African trade, the networks. Here we see about different commodities, how many countries are both exporting and importing these commodities, which means that they're very active. Here we have how many bilateral trading links we have in Africa, hundreds of them for rice and for maize. You'll see that in the next year. So these countries are trading in both directions. These are the products for which many more countries have bilateral trading links. We have here the share of possible links, which are in the 10%. although we have increases for some products, we have realized 10% of the possible links of trading. Of course, we're never going to reach 100%, but it should be more than that. So here we can say that networks are getting denser, more interconnected, and trade relations are expanding, but still below potential. We also continue to look at the degree of concentration of regional trading. And what we see here is that about 40% of trade is taking place for some commodities, maize, for example, and beans between two countries, two-way trades. We have a high concentration. However, the top 10 countries account for about 70 to 80% of several products that are being traded. So we need more commodities to get into the business, to play more role in trade. There's also quite a sense of clustering of trade of these three top commodities. A small number of countries account for most of the trade. So 3 countries trading among each other. We've also seen that a large share of these countries, of this trade takes place within the same regions. It's not being expanded across the different regions. So there too, we need to expand the networks. We have often asked ourselves how COVID has affected trade in Africa. Here you see that 50% of African countries within a month of the epidemics have chosen to close borders with their neighbors. It may not be avoidable to take decisions like this, but having a more coordinated cross-border ways of analyzing, dealing with crisis will allow us at least to minimize the impact on trade when we have crises in the future. So again, to say what we've heard, we're still a long way to raising our shares in global markets. Intra-trade is doing much better. Networks are getting denser. They're extending. We still have quite a degree of clustering. We need to burn a little bit more. We also have a little bit of regional focus, meaning countries within regions trade much more, of course, because of all the barriers that are smaller within those countries, but there's a lot that we need to do in that direction. So I'll stop here and invite you to take a look at the Trade Monitor and those 3 different websites. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you everybody who joined us today. Sarah, did you hear me back?
It looks like Sarah may have dropped off.
Okay.
Oh, here she comes back.
All right.
Sarah, over to you.
You're muted, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that detailed presentation, Dr. Can you hear me now? I've unmuted myself.
We hear you very well.
Am I audible?
Yes, we hear you well.
Can you hear me? Okay, thank you very much for that
Sarah, we can hear you.
insightful presentation. I've left my camera off in case. Thank you. I've left my camera off in case the connectivity continues to pose a challenge. So I just want to thank Dr. Bidan for his excellent presentation of how trade is changing in Africa and the positive moves and some of the details there around what we need to invest in order to boost our competitiveness and which commodities we are becoming more competitive in. With that, I would like to invite Dr. Vanessa Adams to take the floor from an AGRA perspective and share her remarks.
Thank you so much, Sarah and Usman. Fantastic presentation, and all of the previous speakers that have joined, and everyone online. For those of you who are aware, AGRA has really leaned into the trade space in the last 3 years, and with the significant support from, of course, FCDO. But also our longstanding partners in the Partnership for Inclusive Agricultural Transformation in Africa, including, of course, the German government and USAID, who are both on this call as well. And Usman, you and I have been in this trade space along with a lot of the community online for so many years. And it's always such a debate about the right data and getting the right information to so many stakeholders to convince the naysayers that trade is not going to take away from farmer income, but rather add to farmer income and market diversification. And I think this is why this trade report and this community of practice is so critical to AGRA, and why our team has actually partnered with IFPRI, who's also here, FAO, and of course, yourself in Academia 2063 in the Food Trade Coalition for Africa. And it's under this platform that we're so pleased to be able to share data and start actually moving towards more real-time data sharing for decision-making. So the barriers to trade that you've described so well that came up during COVID, and the reticence to open up borders and actually enlarge the market can be satisfied with the criticality of data. And we know and we see it so often that private sector, when they're coming to increase investments in trade in the agricultural and agribusiness space, often ask about the market size, ask about the efficiency and the cost of trade. And this data and this analytics and this report are the kinds of information that, and Maximo speaks to this all the time, that increases competitiveness and draws in increasing in trade. And so we want to generate that movement, that energy, that cycle. And this is why we're so pleased that this is coming 2 weeks from the Food Systems Summit, because we know that the global conversation on food systems can go either way. It can encourage the notion that there can be sustainable and free and open trade in markets, but it also can give people anxiety about wanting to protect their farmers and protect the local rural economies and development. And we think the two can go hand in hand. And Usman, I know that your analytics have shown, and the data shows again and again, that there is actually the ability and inherent coalition of the willing and the practices and leadership in Africa, with all of the ratifications that have come into force on the African Continental Free Trade Area, the huge effort of all the technical partners towards standardizing and harmonizing the barriers to trade through standards and even green line procedures. So we continue to be extremely optimistic as AGRA, and we're supporting ministries of agriculture along with ministries of trade and industry, as you all know, to increase capacity to use these analytics in a real-time nature. And this kind of reporting, again, I want to encourage transparency and utilization of data and information for decision making, and that we can also, as we're all working together, to put these critical analysis into formats that can be used across all of the governments and the partners that we all have, so that they have it at their fingertips at the right time. So we're so pleased again, as I've said, and this 2021 report underscores the volatility in the environment. And we know that stress actually tends to cause some of the backsliding that you might see with some of the variability in these reports. And that also tends to create some anxiety in the private sector. However, transparency and data can cut straight through that, and we can lead the pathway for private sector to continue to mobilize the investments we need. $30 billion a year required to get anywhere near the 2030 SDGs just in the agricultural space. And Maximo is going to correct all my numbers, I know, in his presentation. So I'm here to say that we're 100% on board, engaged, and supporting any way we can. And we're so pleased that at the AGRF, we have the honor and pleasure to be showing off this fantastic partnership and engagement. Thank you all so much. And I look forward to seeing you all online again in 2 weeks at the Food Systems Summit, pushing the trade agenda for food and agriculture. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for calling action, volatility, anxiety, important reflections there about the impact of COVID-19, and encouraging all of our participants to really look forward, look ahead, and use the data. we come to a pivotal moment in this important and exciting discussion.
Sarah,
The formal launch.
if I may, this was
Yes.
going to be the moment for Vanessa also to say that the report is now formally launched. And I think the team had a short video to play to show the report to the audiences. Perhaps we can do that quickly. Thank you.
Thank
This
you
is
very
true
much,
partnership.
Osman. That's
Bajan,
exactly what we want.
I'm holding up my partnership in my hands with appreciation, and we're jointly and all of us officially launching this fantastic report.
There you go. Thank you.
Excellent.
Can we have a sound to go with this, technical team?
Are you unmuted, Tsitsi?
That's okay. We can continue. That's all right. It's nice to see you. It's okay. We can continue. That's all right. It's nice to see you. Thank you, Tsitsi. Now we can go back to Sarah.
Thank you very much for the video there. We got some of the sound bites at the end. Congratulations to Academia 2063. And Vanessa, thank you so much. All participants, a wonderful launch for the 2021 report. Quickly now, we move to the next session, moderated session here with our panelists, esteemed panelists who have been patiently waiting to engage, to make some remarks, to share their reflections on this important report. And I would like to just emphasize that the objectives of this session is to really get different perspectives from the esteemed panelists here. So I want to move very quickly and introduce the first panelist, Mr. Antoine Kanjangwe, Director General of Trade and Investment, Ministry of Trade and Industry, Rwanda, and just invite him to share very quickly some of his reflections on this report. Over to you, Antoine.
Thank you very much, Susan, and good afternoon to everyone on this call and meeting today. It was truly an exciting opportunity for us to be able to participate in this launch of the Africa Agriculture Trade Monitor. To begin with, let me first send the regrets of the Permanent Secretary who wasn't able to join us today due to other conflicting meetings. First, I think the report and the Trade Monitor comes at the right time. I think it's been touched on by previous speakers in terms of its alignment, really in terms of with the food systems meeting that's coming up in about 2 weeks' time, but also importantly, how we frame this report and its outcomes in the larger context of the AFCFTA. For Rwanda, agricultural exports are a new sector, I would say, of commodities trade beyond just coffee and tea, which have been traditional export sectors. We're beginning to see more export products in horticulture, flowers, fruits, nuts, and other semi-processed agricultural products, as well as processed agricultural products such as maize flour, wheat flour. And so in many respects, I think the report aligns with what we're seeing on the ground. What's also important, and what I thought was important to share with this meeting, is the demographic of agricultural trade from the Rwandan perspective. And in this case, who are the traders engaged in this type of trade? Because they're often forgotten throughout the process. And in Rwanda's case, this is oftentimes informal cross-border traders or small-scale cross-border traders who are engaged in this type of agricultural trade. So it's important that we reflect on them and the difficulties or the challenges that they face, but the unique opportunities and the unique impact that this type of commodities trade offers to them in uplifting their livelihoods. In Rwanda, we have a number of borders with neighboring countries where this type of trade takes place. Majority of it, of course, being on the Rwanda DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo border. We have almost close to 90,000 informal cross-border traders who are engaged in agricultural trade. Of course, that's not the only product and commodity that's traded, but by far the largest component is agricultural commodities. So here we're talking about livestock, agricultural goods that are straight from the farm, and increasingly more and more semi-processed, processed agricultural commodities as well. Majority of these traders as well are women. From the analysis and surveys we've conducted. So that adds a gender and social perspective that is important for us to reflect on as well. From our surveys and analysis, we found that nearly 74% of informal cross-border traders are women. That's a huge demographic, and I think one that is important to reflect on it. Many of
Mr.
them—
Director, could you also wind up so that the others can get the floor? Time, it was 2 minutes. Time is running quick.
Sure.
Thank you.
Maybe just a final point. Of the 90,000 traders, majority of them being women, and cross-border trade really forms as their priority and only source of income. So it's good to reflect on this trade monitor and what it says for increasing and diversified trade for the continent moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director. I want to then shift gears a little bit, and I invite Dr. Swinen, Director General of the International Food Policy Research Institute, IFPRI, to in 2 minutes, please respond to this question. The interregional trade has been negatively impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. What type of intervention should African countries design to respond to future crises such as COVID-19 in order to minimize the negative impact on trade? Over to you, Dr. Swinen.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and thanks for everybody here. Let me just use 20 seconds first to congratulate everybody on this report and particularly emphasize our successful collaboration with Academia 2063 in this process and in other activities we are doing together. And thanks also very much everybody on the panel here and on for our and the organizations who have supported our collaboration on this. I think the report regarding COVID-19, but also broader in terms of the impact, for example, of the African Free Trade Association policy reforms, a number of other areas, just makes it very clear that data, high quality data, are really essential. Okay, and this report is based on a very careful original data assessment that we have done, also supported by various organizations in the region, and to measure on this. In terms of the impact of COVID-19, you see different stages on this. So the initial response, as Usman already indicated, was very much closing the borders, as it was in many other countries in the world. But then gradually there has been a reopening. And it is, I think, the type of work that we are doing here, which can inform policymakers that these, basically better policies, better trade policies in this case as well, are really important, and how they affect their constituencies, how they affect their farmers, how they affect their consumers, etc., is really important moving in this, for example, in COVID-19, but it applies much more broadly, as Vanessa has very well explained, in terms of the policy reforms, in terms of the trade association, and going forward clearly on the Food System Summit and all the discussions on trade related with that. And so I think in terms of looking forward, I think we really need to invest to continue this type of work, and also I think broaden it to collect data on the continent-wide collection, okay, beyond the countries where we are already very much active together, and we hope to continue this type of work in that perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Swinen, around those key points of recommendation and reflection. I would like now to move to another key panelist, and I'm very happy to invite Mr. Peter Joe Swenold, Senior Advisor to the Secretary General of African Continental Trade Areas. Yeah, for the Secretary. Thank you very much. And please, the floor is open to you. My question to you is, if you can, in very briefly, just explain to us where you think the priority areas for implementing the Africa Free Trade areas are, and what all our focus and investment should be channeled towards. Over to you. Peter, are you there? Sorry, you're on mute. Kindly unmute yourself. Unfortunately, we are not able to unmute and hear. Perhaps we'll come back to Mr. Peter, because we are not able to hear you, and move on to our next panelist, and we'll come back.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Over to you.
Apologies. Yeah. Yes. So yeah, I'm so sorry about that. So I was also saying apologies for my other panelists. Let me just use this occasion just to thank Dr. Osman and then the team for the great work that you've done in terms of the monitor. I think this would greatly facilitate the work of the Secretariat and in terms of the AFCFTA. Now, back to the question you've asked. Let me just, before I come to the main question, let me just use this occasion just to update in terms of where we are currently on the AFCFTA. So as all of you may recall, it was in January 2012 that the decision was taken by the summit to establish the AFCFTA. And then fast forward to June 2015, that was when the launch of the negotiations took place in South Africa. In February 2016, what then happened was that we had the first meeting of the negotiating forum. Fast forward from that period, back in Kigali, for those of you that may recall, the agreement was open for signature, and then on the spot, we had 44 countries signing. With respect to the AFCFTA Secretariat, it was in February 2020 that His Excellency the Secretary General was first elected as the first Secretary General of the AFCFTA Secretariat. Then in August 2020, we had the Secretariat moving here to Accra. So I needed to just provide this context in terms of what's happening currently. Now, you would also recall that on the 1st of January 2021, we started trading. So we started trading, and then there was a ceremony to herald that particular occasion. But the start of trading also comes with a number of things. So, for example, what we are currently doing is that we have schedule of.
Peter, sorry,
Hello, can you
kindly start wrapping up and just highlight
okay. My apologies.
the three priority investment areas going forward.
Okay, so okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, so basically, currently what we have is 42 countries have submitted their tariff or initial tariff offers to the AFCFTA Secretariat, and out of that 42. We've been able to technically verify them. So currently we have 28, which we are ready to start trading. Now to your question in terms of some of the key challenges that would come up in terms of the implementation of the AFCFTA. One key information and one key we need to know is that the implementation of the AFCFTA agreement itself will not be an easy task. So that in itself presents us with some challenges in terms of how to move forward with the AFCFTA. Earlier on, I also made mention of the fact that trading under the AFCFTA started on the 1st of January. The key question somebody may ask then is that in terms of one country, let's say Antoine's country, Rwanda, is Rwanda able to export something from, say, Rwanda to Ghana as we speak currently? And I would say we have a few challenges in terms of completing the schedules of tariff concessions. So to that extent, nothing is currently happening. We also need to complete negotiations on the rules of origin because the summit decision was for us to have 90% as minimum to be able to start trading. But given the fact that currently we are at about 86% agreed rules of origin, we are still working in order to be able to complete, to have 90% agreed rules of origin under the tariff lines in order to enable us to start trading. Another key area is in terms of adjustment cost. So there will be
Peter, can you please, because we need the others on the podium. Sorry for that.
Okay, then we'll also have adjustment costs as well. So these are some of the challenges that may come with the implementation of the AFCFTA. Thank you so much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Peter, for that, explaining the challenge ahead. And I want to now invite Dr. Maximo Torero to share his reflections and his experience and thoughts on the way ahead. Over to you, Dr. Maximo.
Thank you so much. I think I have 3 minutes, no?
Yes.
So thank you so much for the time and congratulations to Usman, to IFPRI for a great report. As always, every year we have a great report that you all do with the AgroDev team, with Antoine Bouet and all the team of the group of Usman working together. So thank you so much for that. I just want to bring a few key topics. First, for me, one of the major problems that we are facing today is hunger. No, undernourishment has gone up substantially. And undernourishment in Africa went up in 46 million people because of COVID-19 in the last year. So the situation is not improving, it's getting worse. And that's also relative to poverty. Now, if we are in that world, we need to understand that we need to increase resilience. We need to be more ready and the continent has to be more ready. And that's where the trade plays a crucial role. And we need to bring information to avoid wrong messages where we create competition between local production and global value chains. On the contrary, those two should complement each other rather than to go one against each other. So, and that's where the trade role plays a crucial goal here. And the region relies on agricultural trade for its food security. Africa is one of the regions, when we look at a map of the number of food groups that you need to be able to have access to healthy diets, where in the world, 3 billion people don't have access to healthy diets. Africa, sadly, is one of the continents where more of the countries have the less number of food groups that you need. And at the same time, in those countries, you are the ones that have the most trade barriers or trade constraints. So it clearly shows us that there is a huge window of opportunity to improve and to increase the level of exports. And similar to the global situation, we know that despite of COVID-19 logistical problems at the beginning, the exports in Africa were not affected, and they, in value, continue to be important and relevant. But when we look at the long trend, like Usman showed on the report, the value of agri-food exports from Africa has declined since 2011-2015 period from 4% to around 1.7% in 2015-2019 in real terms. And then in 2020 is 1.1% of decline. So that shows that there is something that is not working well still, and we need to keep improving and moving up and increasing that share. Why I'm saying this is so important, we need to differentiate rate of growth with values, because values could be increasing because of the prices, but the rate of growth is not. And that's, I think, the core element. And the matrix that is shown in the report in terms of the type of commodities I think are central. And why I want to bring this, we have developed a 4-dimensional index of resilience at the food system level. Primary production flexibility index, the dietary sourcing flexibility index, the transport network resilience flexibility index, which is important for trade, and economic access. But if I just focus on the first two, the primary production and the sourcing, trade plays an essential role. For primary production, exports are important for Africa and for the continent. And for the case of the other index of dietary sourcing flexibility index, imports and exports are central. And if we map the results for most of the African countries, they don't rank in the situation we will have like, similar to the quadrants that Usman showed. So if as a result of COVID-19, we know that we have to increase resilience, both in early warning, but also in the way we improve and we are able to cope, we need to improve these indicators. And intra-regional trade plays a crucial role here. There are some improvement, there is an agreement, but we need to accelerate that. And to accelerate that, there are two core elements, food safety and standards. So we need to keep pushing the Pan-African Food Safety Agency. And the second element is infrastructure and value chain infrastructure. And that's where digital technologies also play a role. Digital technologies can provide blockchains to be able to do traceability and so on. Those are elements that we need to move. And this report, I think, brings light on how we can accelerate that, because at the same time, it will help us also to formalize the informal trade that is so difficult to measure. And the report is trying to measure, and there is a lot of work being done between academia and IFPRI to try to measure this. So again, kudos for the report. We need to keep pushing, and we are more willing to collaborate and keep cooperating with both of those institutions. Thank you very much. You're muted.
Thank you very much, Dr. Terrero, there for those thoughts and clear recommendations for investment. Very, very important. And now it's really my pleasure to invite for closing remarks, Dr. Heike Holefer from GIZ, who is a key promoter of trade. And just for closing, Doctor, please, your remarks on this presentation.
Thank you very much, everyone. And also from my side, I cannot close without congratulating the IFPRI and academia team and also the AGRF to once more staging the launch of the annual AATM. GIZ, on behalf of the German Ministry for Economic Development and Cooperation, BMZ, has been a relatively strong supporter of the report from almost the beginning, and we're proud to be on board here today again. I think I can only borrow the words of my USA colleague Jim Momko, who said AATM is a unique and vital resource to foster exactly what Maximo Torero closed the panel with, to lobby stronger in future for the trade agenda for the sake of economic development and poverty reduction in Africa. So I think we're here together preaching a bit to the converted, but nonetheless, let's continue the good preaching, because trade is critically important for Africa's long-term development. We know that. And the monitor and the panel discussed today highlighted the important issues that are on this agenda. And I would just like to pick a few of them. I mean, I think a lot of us agree on the global and intracontinental potential of trade. We see how successful some African countries do trade globally with cash crops or with niche crops, and some do still succeed with relatively raw products. But we need to continue working on this. The AATM has in recent years also put the spotlight on some of the issues that were mentioned, for example, by the Rwandan colleague, the role of women, the informality of a lot of intra-African cross-border trade. I think these are issues that are often overlooked, and it's good that the monitor, despite from being rigorous in the data collection, also puts spotlight chapters every year on these things, as they do with livestock this year. However, as Usman has highlighted in his summary of some of the key results, I want to come back to this one graph that was called Trends in Intra-African Agriculture Trade, and the stagnation that we see there in all commodity groups over the last 5 years. And I think here, Peter, AFCFTA has still a big job and standards to hold up to, in order to change this and to come to this turnaround that Maximo also mentioned. Under COVID, which Godfrey Bahigwa also mentioned straight in the beginning, it's the first AATM under AFCFTA. It's the first this year with a year of trading under COVID conditions. Usman has talked about the border closings. So I think there is a lot to be done. And as long as AFCFTA has to get going, I think there's still a big responsibility on the regional economic communities. And let me say this, the German government's just about to negotiate with the ECOWAS Commission a new support program to support African agriculture trade within the ECOWAS region. And I think we need to see a bit more of these type of investments. What we haven't talked yet today, let me just mention it, is environmental and climate aspects of trade. Maximo has talked a bit about the resilience that trade can foster, and there was a focus on the UN Food System Summit in 2 weeks, rightly so. But I think for the years to come and the forthcoming AATMs, maybe some environmental aspects might also feature at some point. And let me close by saying discussions today have revealed the urgent needs for policymakers, practitioners, researchers, development world to continue working on the AFCFTA implementation to make this a success. Everybody sees the big potential there. We need to secondly step up trade facilitation for food security and development. Vanessa has put us on spot for the UN Food System Summit, and I think in 2 weeks' time we know more about this. We know that one of the best investments for trade facilitation is investment in infrastructure and telecommunications and border postings, and as said also in food safety measures and to improve the quality. And I think we all need to work a bit harder there. And last but not least, it shouldn't be done in isolation. There's a lot of room for cooperation. The data and the insights and the evidence the AATM all provides us with can call for a stronger lobbyism and collaboration for joining hands to foster agriculture trade in Africa, particularly under the grim COVID conditions that unfortunately look like that they are here to stay and to continue for quite a while. So research, development, everybody to read this publication. I think that's all that's left to say. Download it, spread the good word. I think there's also been an effort to have more communicatable products. We've seen the lovely video. I think I'll rewatch it with the audio, and then we can stay committed to make this agenda happen. Thank you very much.
So with those words, thank you very much, Dr. Hoffler, Dr. Swinen, and Dr. Bidan. I want to pass the floor over to Dr. Swinen. I see he wants to come in. Go ahead.
I'm happy to come in, but I did not ask for the floor. But thank you very much. It was a great session, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with those remarks, congratulations again, IFPRI and Academia 2063. Please, we urge you, action for trade agenda. We take it forward in 2 weeks to the UN Food System Summit, AGRF, Adams, Vanessa, thank you for this forum. And to our speakers, Dr. Maximo Terrero, Baiba, thank you very much for your input. And I wish you all a very good afternoon and good morning to the other panelists. Bye-bye.
Thank you for your time, Sarah, for moderating and giving us, we know you're very busy doing this. So thank you, everybody who joined us. Again, Joe, thank you for the partnership and collaboration. Thanks, Vanessa, and everybody who joined us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.